Guys, bonus show. Russell Westbrook has been traded for John Wall, Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. I recorded a show today about points leagues. I recorded a couple of ones that are going to be released on the weekend about rookies and second year players, but then of course a massive Woj bomb was dropped. So I've got to come on and give you a bonus episode here. This won't be very long, but the big news is that Russell Westbrook has been traded to the Washington Wizards in exchange for John Wall and a first-round pick, a protected first-round pick. At this point, I don't have data on what that protection is. It's a 2023 first-round pick. I don't have data on that, and these guys obviously had horrible contracts. Both of them, really long ones, and Wall hasn't played in 2 years. Westbrook's got knee problems. It's a really interesting trade for both of these teams. But what we're going to do is just break it down. Now, I want to see the protections on this pick from the Wizards. I'm not sure. Look, Westbrook's better than John Wall. I don't have any doubt about that. I don't think that he's changing the calculus for this team in terms of winning or anything along those lines. And that first round pick, it should be, look, if it's got a good protection on it, then it's a win for Washington. Houston is just an absolute disaster, really, at this point. Does this mean that James Harden is getting traded? I think he probably will at some point. I just don't know when or don't know where. This one obviously came out of nowhere. So the question is what does this do for fantasy? Well, we're going to look at things as they currently sit. It's bad news for Bradley Beal. Let's start with that one. It's bad news for Beal because John Wall is not the same usage player that Russell Westbrook is. Russell Westbrook goes to Washington to play with his former coach, Scott Brooks. Now, I think Westbrook is going to see his usage have a bit of a jump up. I think Westbrook is going to see his assist rate jump back up. Does he average a triple-double again? Probably not, but it wouldn't be a surprise. He's got shooting with Tom Bryant at the 5 who can shoot. Davis Bertans, they should start him. They won't, but they should. Brad Beal obviously next to him. There is some real upside here for Westbrook, who did improve his free throws last season and is not an auto punt guy in that category. He's back into being second round value for me. Probably top 20, maybe top 15. I think this hurts Bradley Beal a lot. John Wall was going to come in and be the clear number 2 to Bradley Beal. Now I'm not so sure. I would say Beal is a better player than Russell Westbrook at this point, but that doesn't matter what I feel. It matters what Scott Brooks feel, and it matters what Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal feel. Now, John Wall coming back off for 2 years out would have said, I am not that guy now. It is Beal's team. Will Westbrook have that same clear indication? I don't know. Now, that is going to be... And does that mean that then Beal gets traded? He just says, well, screw this shit, like I'm out of here. I don't know what that means exactly, but I don't think the relationship between Westbrook and Beal could be any worse than the relationship was between Westbrook and between Wall and Beal. So maybe that helps, but I do think this hurts Beal. His ADP Beal at the moment is at 12 on Yahoo. I want nothing to do with him at that spot. He's more of a late second rounder to me, mid to late second rounder. And if it comes down to between him and Westbrook, I think it's pretty close between those two. I probably lean Beal more because Westbrook's more likely to sit out games with a back-to-back. But absolutely a wild move. So that's that number one thing. It hurts other guys. It drops the usage of players like Hachimura, Davis Bertans, Tom Bryant, Troy Brown. Pretty much everyone loses a usage hit because you're going from a lower usage John Wall to a higher usage Russell Westbrook. So all of those guys on the Wizards will cop a hit. It'll reduce the minutes for guys like Ish Smith and Raul Neto in the backcourt because Wall wasn't going to play as much as Westbrook. He was going to miss more games than Westbrook as well. So there's hits all around there, even though this does improve Westbrook's value. On the Houston side of things, this is assuming things stay as they are. We don't know that yet, but assuming they stay as they are and James Harden remains on this team, he absolutely locks in as number one now. He could get traded for sure, but even if it's like 3 months of him being by far and away the number one guy, I'll take it. He is going to see assist rate go up. He is going to see usage go through the roof. He is going to have the ball in his hands. Yes, John Wall is a point guard as well who needs it, but it's not like playing with Russell Westbrook. Wall is going to be limited. Wall is going to have lower usage, and it's great for Harden. Now, I could record this, and then in a day's time, Harden is out of here. That is a huge possibility, and I can't speculate on whether that's going to happen or anything along those lines. I think there is a chance of it, but I am not all that worried about Harden not being, at very worst, a top 3 player this year if he is dealt. So this really helps his value. It helps Christian Wood as well. I think Wood's going to move into 3rd round-ish. Maybe he could even get into 2nd round territory if Harden is dealt. I think it helps him pretty significantly. Again, usage. Some of it, John Wall's going to get usage, but he's not going to be a 33, 34% usage guy that Westbrook was. So Wood is going to absorb some shots. Might help DeMarcus Cousins a little bit as well. Might help someone like Eric Gordon. Not that Gordon is really a standard league guy, but I think the big beneficiary here is obviously Harden, but it also helps Wood quite a bit because he now is more of a number 2 option. Wall, again, he's never a good shooter, and he's 2 years removed from an Achilles injury. So I'm not really relying upon him to be a number 2 option on offense. It does hurt Wall a little bit, I think, to play alongside Harden versus playing alongside Beal. He's still like that 7th, 8th round sort of point guard with some risk associated with him, given the rustiness and his Achilles problem, with a little bit of upside there, but it hurts him somewhat. But the big winner here is Harden, it's Wood, and it's Westbrook. And it hurts guys like Beal, it hurts guys like Wall, and it hurts a lot of those peripheral Wizards guys like Bertans and Hachimura and those sort of players who are going to have to, and Tom Bryant as well, who are going to have to adjust to playing with Russell Westbrook because it is a pretty big it is a pretty big adjustment to playing with Russell Westbrook. So that is a huge difference in terms of how this can affect fantasy. I don't know what it means in real life here, but he is going to be better than John Wall. This pushes the Wizards into the play-in game discussion, I would say for sure. Whether they can get into the top 8 or top 10, though, even the top 10, I feel pretty confident about that. Westbrook, Beal is probably going to be a better combination than Wall and Beal was this year. They've got some pieces. They will push towards the playoffs here, the Wizards. Obviously, taking on the Westbrook contract is tough, and we'll have to see exactly what happens with this first round pick, but it is huge news to see that sort of deal go on. Look, people say, does this mean a Harden trade's coming? It may not. Harden just might be like, I couldn't deal with this dickhead. Like, I know they're mates, but on the court it just didn't work for us. And maybe this makes Harden more likely to stay. I doubt that. I think that's probably only a 20% chance. But how's Houston? Trading Chris Paul and all those first round picks in order to end up with John Wall and whatever this one pick is. Some moves definitely happen there. And look, I don't know. These guys making $40 million a year getting traded for each other who are clearly on the downside of their career and not worth it. We're just trying to see if different environments and different coaches have an impact on these players, like Westbrook back with his former coach, Wall in a different environment where he's not going to hate the player he's playing with in Bradley Beal. Maybe he hates playing with James Harden as well. We will see. But another part is that John Wall gets to reunite with former Kentucky teammate DeMarcus Cousins. So that is, we'll see how that goes with those guys. And yeah, obviously just waiting to see what happens with James Harden here in terms of any deal. Just seeing a report here that says, from Adam Spillane, who has some Rockets info, says, I was told Russell Westbrook never reported to Houston for the start of training camp. So there you go. So Westbrook was just out. He just said, I'm not coming in. Maybe this does mean Harden stays. I don't know. I'm really, really interested to see what this means. I think Harden probably is on the team by the at the start of the season. And I feel I don't feel as good as I was. I'm absolutely locked in on Harden as number 1 for the last 4 years. Every year, just take him at 1. I'm not anywhere near that confident in him that I was a few all those past years. But I'm still going with Harden at number 1 at this point. Just a wild trade. I hope you guys like this short breakdown. I'm going to go and tinker with all the projections over on Basketball Monster as well. Don't forget to subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.